And you are here for Is Podcasting Cooked?
Most depressing talk of the conference.
We've got the answer.
It's definitive. Yes, podcasting is cooked. We can wrap things up. Thanks for your attention. At least according to Reddit, at least. So maybe not the definitive source, but if we peruse through some of the Reddit posts, these might look familiar to you.
Yeah, I think we should read these in our best Redditor voice.
Okay.
Is anyone else sad about so much emphasis on video?
Petition to make podcasts audio only again.
Anyone sign that petition? Yeah. Okay.
Ooh. Painful to hear how podcasts rush to video is turning them into dreadful listens.
Are audio-only podcasts still a thing, or is video now necessary? Anyone here asking that question right now? A little bit? Okay.
Is video actually helping podcasts grow, or just adding extra work?
Thoughts on the rise of AI-generated podcasts? Question mark?
And then I just love the enthusiasm in this one. YouTube to demonetize, maybe demonize as well, AI slop content starting July 15. Yay!
So, if you've been reading pod news, if you've been on LinkedIn, if you've been looking at the headlines, there's this narrative that, AI and maybe video is going to ruin everything we love about podcasting.
And yet, at the same time, we also have a lot of people who are very excited about both of these developments in podcasting. We've got people who see a lot of opportunity from both video and potentially AI. Whether or not all of us are behind some of those uses of AI is probably a point that we might get into a little bit here. What are the pros and cons? But we actually want to kind of explore where some of this fear comes from. What is the actual reality related to both of these new potential threats to podcasting or potentially opportunities to podcasting, and see, how should we be thinking about both of these in a way that maybe is a little bit different from the mainstream narrative.
I just realized we forgot to introduce ourselves. I'm Justin Jackson, the co-founder of Transistor.fm. We are a podcast hosting platform. Anyone use Transistor here? Yay. Oh, yes, my people. Thank you so much. You can now use us for video podcasting as well. Upload a video, distribute it everywhere. And
I am Jeremy Enns. I'm the founder of Podcast Marketing Academy, and I help coaches, consultants, and advisors build podcast marketing systems that get them clients.
And Jeremy and I are podcast industry buddies. We met each other at a podcast conference. And now, we just are inseparable. Every conference, we just hang out the whole time.
We got 2 shows already together, as any 2 podcasters who come together, and we got, I think, at least 2 more in the works.
Oh yeah, we've got many podcasts in the works. We need to start with a disclaimer, though. I don't know why, but we chose some very big topics. Video, which is a whole thing on its own, and AI. There's a lot we could talk about. There's ethical questions around AI. There's philosophical questions. I've heard there's already been some AI talks, and there's a little bit of feelings. I totally get it. First, I'll say I'm on the side of the creator. I love creators. I'm a creator myself. But we don't have time to talk about everything with AI and video. The ethical issues, the philosophy, we're going to have to keep that for maybe after, maybe during the Q&A. But we're just going to focus on how might we use video and AI to augment what we're already doing.
So let's start off with video. This has been the one that I think has been kind of, slowly and then all of a sudden dominating podcasting over the past maybe 3 years. And I think that you actually have a story from last year at the podcast show that perfectly kind of encapsulates and exemplifies this shift to video. Yeah,
so this is a guy we met in the pub, this guy right here. This is Michael. If you've ever talked to our customer service, you've probably talked to him. But this is Ian. He was visiting from New Zealand, and we were watching a football game in the pub. And, as sometimes happens, podcasting came up. And so I asked Ian and his family, are you guys into podcasts? And they're like, oh yeah, we love podcasts. The next question is, where do you consume your podcasts? What do you think they said? YouTube. And I was like, okay, at the time, I'm an audio-only person, and I'm like, okay, I got to do the follow-up question. Ian, have you ever listened to a podcast? And he said, why would I listen to a podcast? He thought it was hilarious. He said, that would be like listening to a movie, was his line. So, there's this line that video's big, right? YouTube is big. A lot of people use YouTube for their podcast consumption.
And I think that a lot of us have had experiences with talking to podcast consumers that kind of speak to the same thing. And so as specifically audio first creators or audio only creators, this is kind of the fear here, where YouTube is eating podcasting, video is eating podcasting, Spotify's moving to video, Apple's moving to video. And if you're only continuing to do audio only, you're basically dead in the water and you're done. And so this is one of the narratives that we hear a lot, and maybe a lot of people, if you look at the Reddit comments, I think that's maybe a pretty pro-audio crowd on Reddit there for podcasting. But this is certainly the feeling, but I don't actually know if this is accurate. So I think it might be useful to look at the reality and some of the data that's out there and see what is actually happening with audio and video in podcasting.
Yeah, so let's look at this first one here. This came from Coleman Insights. They did this research, and the big narrative, it is true, if you look at this. The biggest platform, and you would think, it would just be young people, maybe? No, YouTube it's consuming every form of media, right? And in every age group, whether you're 18, or whether you're 63 or older, YouTube's the most popular podcasting platform, the app that people use most in every age group.
And so I think that this kind of encapsulates a lot of the fear and says, yes, YouTube is eating podcasting, everything is shifting to video, until you look at another chart here.
Let's get some nuance here. You guys like nuance? All right.
This isn't the YouTube conference or TikTok conference. So this is from the Infinite Dial, the 2026 version here. And what we can see here, we've got on the far right, people who have not consumed podcasts in any capacity. On the far left, we've got people who have only listened to audio podcasts. They have never consumed a video podcast. That small little sliver of red on the right, those are people who have only consumed video podcasts. And then we've got this big chunk in the middle, both of all time, last month and last week, of people who have consumed both audio and video podcasts. Sometimes this is going to be the same show in both audio and video. Sometimes it's some shows are going to be in video, some in audio. But we can see here that the biggest chunk is not audio only or video only. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah, so here's the nuance. Some people want audio. Some people want only video. And most people want both. It's not black or white. It's more gray, right? Most people want both audio and video for their podcasts.
And I think that one of the things where we can see this in action is this idea of hybrid consumption. And I think that your family household is probably a good little case study or vignette into what this actually looks like.
Okay, yeah. So my wife and I have 4 kids, and this is our youngest, Liam. He's 16. And you can't see it here, but Liam is wearing his headphones and he's watching YouTube. He loves this YouTuber named Moist Critical. Anyone familiar with Moist Critical? Okay. Look him up. Maybe not, but look him up. And Liam is just always got his phone, right? He's like cooking eggs in the kitchen, watching video at the same time. But if you watch him closely, his consumption is fluid. Every once in a while, he'll put the phone in his pocket, and he'll just keep walking around the house listening, and then he'll take it back out again, watch in the pocket. Any of you with kids see the same thing? Any of your kids put YouTube on in the background? Big thing, right? This is what we're talking about. Hybrid consumption doesn't always mean they're watching all the time.
And so what this kind of gets at is that there's a lot of conversation podcasting that I think people who have an investment in the medium and the craft and the industry want to kind of define what is a podcast. Is it audio only? Is it video? What if a podcast, somebody consumes a podcast? I have a friend, she told me about a dating podcast that she likes. Said, oh, where do you listen to it? And she says, oh, I just watch the clips on Instagram. But she considered herself a big fan of this podcast. And she probably spent many hours cumulatively consuming content from the show without ever going to YouTube, without ever going to an RSS-based app. And so there's this idea that consumers are going to consume content that they want to consume where they can. And they're going to, if it's available in multiple platforms, they are going to consume it in the medium that is best for them. And so all we can do as creators is adapt to that and say, okay, people want to consume my stuff here. That's great. Am I going to decide whether or not I'm going to make it available there?
Okay, this next slide is the most controversial, so just...
I told Justin not to include this. I told him he was going to piss people off. He's going to get booed off the stage. He insisted.
In the podcast industry, especially old timers, we like to say, this is what makes the podcast industry great. Wherever you get your podcast, wherever you get your podcast. But there's a lot of old timers that will say, wherever you get your podcast, except for maybe these apps right here. And certainly not these apps right here. That's not a podcast. And I wonder if we should really be dictating what people think is a podcast. Every time I get in an Uber or I talk to people, I ask, do you listen to podcasts or do you consume podcasts? And some people are saying, oh yeah, I consume podcasts on TikTok. Now are we going to shake our head and say, no, 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 it's wherever you get your podcast, except for if you're using one of those apps. Something to think about. Again, you can send me letters. Consumers decide. I think this is the big thing. Consumers decide, creators respond. We don't make the waves, we ride the waves. That's the whole thing. If we want to fight the way consumers are moving, we could try to do that. But the truth is, people are going to get their podcasts however they get their podcasts.
And I think the thing here too is that people are hungry for great content that they like, and if we are creating great content and we're keeping it from being available to where people want to consume it, we're keeping them from that. Those are our ideas, our content, and we're also potentially hurting ourselves. That's not to say we need to put our content out on every platform, but people are hungry for stuff like ours, and there's an argument to be made that maybe we should be making it easier for them to access it.
That really softened that whole slide, thanks.
So obviously there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of podcasters. I did a report a year ago, and it was about 50-50% of people who created podcasters. There's about 600 people who took this survey. 50% right down the center were audio only, and 50% were doing audio and video. And so there's obviously a lot of people who see the opportunity on YouTube, on Spotify, now on Apple as well, and they're curious about tapping into it. But I think a lot of the reason that there's hesitation around it is that we think, well, I might like to do that, but I don't have the budget for it. I don't have the time for it. It's just going to double my workload, it's going to double the cost, and I don't have the skills. It took me a while to learn how to produce an audio podcast. There's no way I can do a video now as well.
Is there anybody here who's thought about doing video, but it just seemed like too much? Like you're just like thinking about it, but it's like, okay. All right, I mean, it's natural. Like a lot of the video podcasts we see look kind of like this. They've got a studio, they got multiple camera angles, they got nice lighting. This is TBPN. I don't know if you heard did you hear about these? They just got bought by OpenAI for like hundreds of millions of dollars. But I think a lot of us have this picture in our head. But I want to introduce you to one of my favorite podcasts. This is the top political podcast in Canada. Are you guys ready? This is it right here. This is the real thumbnail that they chose. And I love this show. This video, by the way, almost 200,000 views on this video, talking about Canadian politics, making it even bigger than all Canadian television. And you can see it's like, this is the frame they have the whole time. It's these three boxes. Bad lighting, honestly not great audio quality either, but people listen because there's something compelling about it. These guests are incredible, and I'm actually a good example of this hybrid consumption we've been talking about. When I walk home from the office, I'm listening using Pocket Casts. Anyone use Pocket Casts here? Love Pocket Casts. And when I get home, I'll throw the video up on the TV, maybe have it on in the background while I'm cooking, maybe just sit and watch it from the couch. So I'm using both modes.
And so I think that when we think about video, a lot of times we think that it has to be this overly complicated, high production value type of show. And that's one of the things that actually keeps us not even committing to a video podcast, by just like dipping our toe in the water and experimenting and say, maybe there's a way for me to wade into this and start experimenting and find out, is there a way that video could work for my show? And you actually have a personal example. You maybe don't have so many views on YouTube as Peter Mansbridge, but you've got a humble little show that you're doing something similar.
That's right. I do a show with my friends, Brian and Jordan. But I think this looks like what a lot of us are doing. A lot of us are already recording video in StreamYard or Descript or Riverside, right? And we've got that same 3 panels as that other show I showed you. And what we found is we can edit this very similar to how we're editing audio. And upload it to Transistor. Transistor has video podcasting now. We've just started doing this, experimenting with it with my show. And with one upload, we can distribute it to YouTube, to Apple Podcast Video, to RSS. So there's a bunch of apps, like Amazon Music just gave support for this. iHeart just gave support for this. Video, HLS video in your RSS feed. And then Spotify is coming soon as well. And what we found in almost every case, here's my humble little show. In almost every case, we are basically doubling the audience. My friend Stephen Robles, do you guys know Stephen Robles as well? He also found this. He's doubled his plays and views since he launched on Apple Podcast Video. And it's not taking away from the audio audience. It's just additive. Because it turns out, like we showed you in those other slides, some people want the video.
So I think one of the things, there's still this pushback, and so Justin and I do one show together. Two of our shows are video, kind of video first. We designed them to be native to video while also having the audio component, obviously. Yeah. And those are really easy to edit. And so we just, record our episode through Riverside, and then we put it into script, and we just have our 2 boxes. Maybe we have a couple scene changes here and there, but that's pretty easy. I started another show earlier this year that's just me. It's a 60-minute long solo show called Killer Concept, where in every episode I basically take an idea for a podcast and say, here's how you can make a fascinating chart-topping show on this topic. And I was going to do video because I thought, okay, I want to experiment more with this. But there's no interview. It was just me. And I showed the trailer, the 3-minute trailer to Justin. He said, man, 3 minutes of just looking at you speaking to the camera was really awkward. Okay, I might have to rethink the 60-minute version here. And so I ended up just doing an audio version. And I think that a lot of people are in this camp where it's like, well, it's not really easy to do video. What am I going to get? Where am I going to get all this B-roll and find stock video libraries? Or maybe I'm going to use AI to try and do something with that. But it just feels so complicated. And I was thinking I was going to do that. And then I was like, no, way too much work. But I think that one of the opportunities here is actually, as we've kind of been alluding to, we often think about video as being one thing, high production value, but there's a lot of other types of video that people tune into that we might not really think about as video a lot of times. So as an example, I'm curious if anybody, any Roku users here, past or present? You might see recognize the cozy confines of Roku City here. There was an article in the New York Times a couple years ago that of the 100 million households that had Roku, 85% of them had said they had just spent time just staring at the city scroll by. And I'm actually one of those people as well. Maybe another example, every December rolls around, I put up the cozy cabin vibes in my house basically 24/7. And this is on YouTube, this is technically video, but I'm not using it like we might think of like TV or a movie. It's a very different experience of video. And then we've got the classic. Who among us has not sat and watched the DVD logo bounce around just waiting for that moment when it hits the corner with perfection?
So here's the creative exercise. Video podcast doesn't have to always mean eyeballs glued to a screen. Like we said, a lot of us are putting shows on in the background. And so if that's true, that doesn't mean things have to be changing on the screen all the time. You can have visuals that go up. That might be interesting if someone lifts their head or if you alert people to, hey, check this out. But it doesn't have to be constant, like, entertaining eyes glued to the screen.
And I think that, James Cridland has this quote that you've quoted a lot of times, that podcasting is the thing for your ears when your eyes are busy. And I think that even with video podcasts, this is actually still true. Most people who are consuming video podcasts are not having their eyes glued to the screen the entire time. They might be at work and they glance over every now and then. They're in the kitchen. And so this, I think, actually lowers the bar significantly for the barrier to entry to get started with video. And you actually have, I think, have a great example here that you just like whip this up in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I just whipped this up. So this is maybe a D&D or fantasy podcast. We'll see if this works, plays through the thing.
Welcome to Dungeon Craft, a Dungeons & Dragons themed actual play podcast. Let's get into this week's adventure. The wind howls through the jagged peaks of the spine of the world. Our party stands before the great stone door, its ancient runes pulsing with a faint malevolent glow. Behind them, the shadows are closing in.
That was just, some visuals. I did the extra step of actually animating those, but you could just have visuals up there. And again, if you're listening to Dungeons & Dragons podcast, you might just want to be like hanging out and then having it up on the screen and looking at it while you're doing something else.
Another example here, this is a client of mine. They have the Get Sleepy podcast. They got a whole network of shows here. And so they are primarily an audio first podcast. They're one of these sleep aid shows. And so mostly people are falling asleep. They've got their headphones in. But they also have a YouTube version. And they have these just kind of basic ambient graphics that accompany the videos. And this video here, 141,000 views. And so this is a huge audio podcast. It's also a very big video podcast with very low kind of effort and time that they put into these visuals. And a lot of times they just build up a stock library of videos and just reuse them through all their episodes. So it's not like every episode is this new lift to create all these visuals.
Mm-hmm. And again, you can use AI for those, or you could hire an artist for those. You could hire an artist and then use AI to animate them. There's lots of options here that might be low lift and could be interesting.
And Justin's volunteered. He's willing to do some illustrations as well.
I will, yeah, just send them my way. So you can still, listen, you can still make an audio podcast. There's lots of market. Lots of people who still want an audio podcast.
And you can also make an audio first podcast with a video element. You can make a video first podcast. And there's a huge market for that as well.
And just to show this slide again a different way, 83%, that's the market that consume both audio and video podcasts. And I think if you're like me, there might even be some shows that are like, they're just in my Pocket Cast queue. It's like, oh, that's for Pocket Cast time. But then there's other shows like, oh, I love watching that show on YouTube, or oh, like maybe when I'm doing something mindless at work, I'll just have it up on the background. And those are my like YouTube or video shows.
And so I think the answer, at least to the first part of our question here, is podcasting cooked? I think when it comes to video, the answer is clearly no. There's still a huge market of people. The vast majority of people want to listen to audio podcasts. And there's a lot of people who also want to consume podcasts on video. And so lots of opportunity for anybody who wants to create a show. Okay.
But what about AI?
Ooh, okay. Video didn't kick podcasting off the top, but maybe AI here.
This is Scary Movie Part 2. I mean, you've seen the headlines. These are the headlines. They are scary. And here's what I think is interesting. I think what a lot of folks are scared about isn't what we should be scared about. I think a lot of folks think there's going to be all these like AI slop podcasts that are going to drown out these great podcasts that we've been really working hard at. It's like, oh, all the good stuff is just going to get drowned out. I'm not sure that's actually the thing we should be worried about.
Yeah, I think there's another story with AI that potentially is as big as a threat to certain sections of the podcast industry that I think most people don't see coming and might end up creating shows that people simply no longer want. And I have a couple examples here that will illustrate this. So the first one, a few weeks ago, James Cridland, masterful tease of this article as he always does in the newsletter. He said, okay, we interviewed Lizzie Hale here, and she's going to tell us exactly how Spotify chooses shows to feature. And I thought, okay, I want to know that. I clicked through the link, and I see an hour-and-a-half long podcast. And I immediately thought, well, there's no way I'm listening to that. So I went over to the transcript, copied and pasted it, put it into Claude, and said, just tell me, how do they decide? And it gave me the little one paragraph, and I was like, great. I have the information I needed. I have the information James teased. And he actually makes this available. He did a written version later. So he knows people are not going to listen to this podcast.
Let's be honest. Has anyone here summarized the podcast with AI? Anybody? This is a safe space. Put up your hands. Okay.
Next story. So after this, I started thinking, I can't be the only one who's doing this. And so I sent an email out to my list. This is one of my clients and friend, Sam. Here you can see us on a cycle tour, both deciding what podcast should we listen to next as we cycle along the English countryside. He's the host of two audio-only podcasts, How to Change the World and Growth Mindset Psychology, both of which are getting cumulatively over 100,000 plays per month. So a lot of experience in podcasting, very successful. And one of the things that he does, I think more people should do, is he basically every single week has anywhere from 2 to 5 listener conversations. People who listen to his show, he gets on the phone, talks to them for 30 minutes, and just sees what's going on in their world. And he started to notice this trend where he said more and more of the people that he was talking to are telling him, yeah, I basically only get the AI summaries of shows that I used to listen to. And he's heard it once and twice, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times. And he started asking the question, what does that mean for me as a creator? And the question that he started asking is, what does a podcast look like that people don't want to skip through to just get the summary?
And you also told me about this other client who responded to one of your emails, and they were like, unsubscribing from podcasts because of AI?
Yeah, and so after Sam told me about this, I sent out an email to my list and saying, oh, is anybody else thinking about this? And no podcasters responded, but a bunch of people said that on the consumption side, and this client, Natalie, she said, yep, basically the thing that got me into podcasting was the ability to get access to information in a convenient way. And now I've basically gone to my feed and I've unsubscribed from 20 or 30 shows that I used to love because I can get that from ChatGPT faster in a more personalized way. And she kind of said, yeah, a lot of times it just feels with podcasts like I have to sit through 60 minutes to maybe get the one thing I was promised in the title.
Yeah, so I think this is kind of a warning. This is a real truth, which is AI is making a whole category of podcasts irrelevant. But it's not because slopcasts. It's because of this here. There's anything that was like a generic information podcast, how to, 5 tips, any show you'd listen to at 2x speed, like I just got to get through it. It's like, you're not enjoying it, you're just trying to get the information. And honestly, I think the key point is any show where the AI summary is better than the show. That's the question we've got to ask ourselves. Would the AI summary of my show be better than the show? Well, if that's true, we got to change our shows, right? We got to adapt.
Now, that said, I think there are tons of shows in podcasting that are incredibly resilient to AI. And I think of a show like Acquired. This is 4-hour-long episodes they usually do, release one a month. And I know both Justin and I love the show. He nagged me for like 3 years before I finally gave in. And he recommended like 15 different episodes. And finally I relented and I said, fine, listen. Now it's one of my favorite shows.
The Taylor Swift episode is really good. The Business of Taylor Swift. You got to listen to that one.
And this is a show that both of us, when we see a new episode come out, we eagerly anticipate finding time in our week to look forward to it. And it's almost like you're going on a vacation where like the anticipation is as much of the fun as actually listening. There's shows like the Ezra Klein Show, which he has a singular viewpoint and perspective and is able to get different angles out of the guests that he brings on. And then another one of my favorite shows is 3 Books, our fellow Canadian Neil Pasricha. And on the surface, this looks like a typical kind of like interviewing top performers type show. Except he does it in a totally different way from a lot of generic expert interview shows where every episode is built around each guest unpacking their 3 most formative books. And so many of my favorite interviews of people that I've known and liked and trusted and looked up to have come from that show because he has this very distinct format.
I think the best way for us to navigate this is to think about your own behavior. You open up your podcast player of choice. You've got a list of episodes you can listen to. And we're all doing it. We're like, nah. Oh, that's the one I have to listen to. What is it about that? Well, it's podcasts that give you an experience. It's podcasts that have a unique point of view. Podcasts that have access to unique guests. Podcasts where the personality of the host keeps drawing you back. So we want to make shows that it would be weird if people didn't listen to them when they open up their podcast app.
Going back to Natalie, who responded to my email and was telling me about all the shows she was unsubscribing from. She is not actually unsubscribing from podcasting as a medium. She is listening to more podcasts than ever, but it's just that her consumption and what she goes to podcasting to get is different than what it used to be. And so she said, what I'm drawn to now are voices that offer a distinct point of view. The ability to take a concept, strategy, or idea and translate it into something tangible through analogy and or lived experience.
Yeah, so I think the key is people don't want information anymore. They want an experience. They want connection. They want something that they can't get from just reading an article. That's what we bring as podcasters.
And I think the question for all of us is thinking about, why do consumers come to podcasting? We all have the same amount of time in the day. We can choose to spend that on Netflix. We can choose to spend that on YouTube, on podcasting. People choose podcasting for some reason. They have some association with it, and there's something that they want to get out of podcasting that they can't get anywhere else. And so I think the question for us is to think, why do people choose podcasting, and how do I actually lean into that? Rather than trying to make podcasting more like YouTube or short form social media or whatever it is to try and get more views, maybe it's saying, hey, podcasting is really great at doing some specific things that other platforms are not so good at. And I would say specifically depth, nuance, and that distinctive point of view. These are things that podcasting is probably better at than any other form of media, and we should be leaning into those things because I think that's why people come to them.
Yeah. All right, we're going to start bringing this home. And I think we're going to have time for Q&A. So if you've got questions about video or AI, you might have questions. We've been doing a video podcast for a while. We've just, again, turned on Apple Podcast Video. We've got experiences with that. So I'm a little bit, am I AI pilled? I don't know. Funny enough, Gen Z doesn't like AI, and so my kids are always calling me like a chopped unk. You know, it's like, yeah, you're chopped unk. You like AI? But let's go back to these Reddit headlines here. These Reddit comments. I think a lot of this energy is a little misdirected. Like even, again, I love audio podcasts. I'm a fan of audio podcasts. There's lots of shows that I listen to that are audio only. But are we gonna like force every podcast fan to only listen to audio? Is that what we want as an ecosystem? Like, is that the point? This energy can be better spent other ways. We can redirect a lot of this energy. And I think it actually is asking the wrong question, which is like this general like podcasting as like a thing. But the truth is, podcasting is a thing that you do, and podcasting is a thing that you do. And so what really matters is you and your audience and making something they want.
Yeah, I think that the core thing for all of us, these are all going to be moving targets throughout all of our lives. I think the things that what we want to make is going to shift, the things that people want to consume is going to shift, and where people are at, that's going to be shifting as well. But as long as we are kind of aiming to hit the dead center of this graph and ensuring that we are engaged and energized with the stuff that we're creating, if that's audio only, great. If that's audio video, great. But also ensuring that, okay, we're making stuff that people want and making it available where they want to consume it.
And I'm going to leave you with this last slide. This is your checklist. Is as long as podcasters, that's you folks, are making stuff they like, so as long as you're making stuff you like, making stuff that your audience likes, and reaching your audience where they're at, people, podcasting is not cooked. Thanks so much. All right. If you've got to go, that's fine. We also have free t-shirts, but we also have time for questions. And I think we have a microphone right over here. There's a question. Nothing too hard.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a really hard one, Dustin. So sometimes with really popular podcasts that you know have a huge listener base on Spotify and Apple and that, they will have a YouTube channel. But then you'll take a look at the YouTube videos and there's not many views. So what is your opinion on that? Because sometimes that's when I waver with certain clients and stuff. I'm like, are they suited for video or not?
Yeah, I mean, here's one thing I've been thinking about a lot is a lot of people's pushback to video is because they're used to making audio. But if you go back to the beginning, when you started, making audio was hard. Like, you had to figure out a bunch of stuff. I started with this like big, bulky blue Yeti mic, and I was like recording in this old bank vault, and it was all echoey, and I didn't know how to edit, and I didn't know how to soundproof things, and I didn't know how to present myself. So there was a lot of things I had to figure out back then. The only thing I want to just like encourage people to do is give it some time to try and experiment. So the YouTube thing, yeah, it might not work right away, but it still might be worth experimenting with. The other thing we're seeing, especially with this model where you upload one video file and then Transistor distributes it everywhere, yeah, some places the YouTube views are small, but then some people have a really big audience on Apple Podcasts and they're getting a lot of traction with the video on Apple Podcasts. You'll also notice this if you ever post on multiple social media, like sometimes something will just take off on one platform, not take off on the other. So I think it's worth experimenting, and just like anything else, it took us a long time to get good at audio. It took us a long time to like get people to listen to our podcast and to figure out how to make that work. We got to give it some time, and even like editing, because a lot of people are like, man, it's so hard to edit video because it's so choppy. This is just an opportunity for us to get creative about how we can do that. How can I, as an editor, edit a show so that it sounds great, but it also is compelling visually? To me as a creator, that's like a fun challenge. And again, if I wasn't interested in video, I could just keep doing audio, but I'm interested in video. I like doing it. I like the idea of having an independent podcast studio, TV studio in my house. Like, that's kind of fun, right? So I would say give it time. YouTube's its whole thing. And there's things you can do in that ecosystem that you'll figure out over time.
I would say too that like the first season of our show, we started editing audio versions and video versions separate. So there was a kind of a general edit, and one was like signed off for polish, and then there's another edit for the second. But over time, as I kept going, I was like, actually, there's a way to just make this work for both. So I do one edit, it actually takes the same amount of time as it would for audio, maybe like an additional 15 minutes or something like that. And so I think then, if you can minimize that time that you're actually putting into production, then it's like, well, if I get 100 extra views on YouTube, it's like maybe that's 100 extra people. There's more people consuming my content. I know we have a small YouTube audience for our show, and I've got several clients who've come from YouTube who've discovered me, and I was like, wow, these like 150 people who listen to the show or watch the show on YouTube, like there's actually, like this is valuable.
Yeah, the other thing about this hybrid consumption that we didn't talk about is that it's also related to touch points. So I've talked to a lot of listeners who say, oh, like I kept seeing Mel Robbins' face on TikTok, never watched her, but then I saw her on YouTube, and I still didn't watch her, but then Apple featured her, and then I listened. So like anything, sometimes it takes multiple touch points for people to become a fan, and this is just another way to kind of have more of those touch points. Yeah, we got a question back here with the mic.
Hello. Thanks. Clayton and Coke, creator of the Cash Flow Show, hosted on Transistor.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Okay, I'm not ringing up, it's not about. But one of the questions that's been on my mind for a long time, and I've discussed it with others, is that transition from audio to video, it's a great opportunity, and I can see what the statistics say and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But notwithstanding, you can put up a camera and that very dodgy triptych you put up to those three people.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the problem is that I want to know that if I'm doing this extra work for video, it's actually going to end up increasing my figures that I can use to get more opportunities, more sponsorships, more business.
Mm-hmm.
How can we ensure that that happens if I then start to pay my money and upload to Transistor?
Yeah, I think if I had an audio-only show, I would start by just making one really good video episode. So there's a lot of these podcast studios that are all over. There's a bunch in London. We hired, is Harry still here? We hired a videographer for this event right here. So it cost us some money, but make one really good video show, and it will show up in Apple Podcasts with a little video icon next to it. It'll show up in Spotify with a little video icon, and obviously it'll show up in YouTube as well. And then just see what the response is to that. Now you've got like a premier version of your show that's well produced, that's video only, and if you start getting traction from it, if sponsors are interested in it, now you have an asset to kind of show around. So I would just start, you don't have to do every episode as video. This is the other thing about this hybrid format. You guys can do an audio, video. Audio, video. You can mix it up.
I think the other thing that I would say to that is that there is no way to know that it's going to work. And I think nobody knows when they start a podcast it's going to work. Nobody knows, everybody thinks when they start a business it's going to work, and very few do. And so this is just part of expanding your skill set into working into new mediums. And so I think that there has to be some kind of like excitement and willingness to actually work through the process of learning. And I always think about like myself when I'm taking on learning a new skill. It's like I know I'm going to do a kind of crappy job of it at first, but I need to like build. I always think of this as like sediments in the Earth's crust, where it's like we compress this down until the thing that used to take me 10 hours with a video, now I just do that in 5 minutes, and then I can layer on another piece. And like, okay, I'm getting the workflow down of posting to YouTube. Now let me start to think about, okay, maybe my title and thumbnails, or maybe that first 30 seconds. If I want to do well on YouTube, I know I need to hook people. So maybe that's the next thing I work on, and then maybe I work on another piece. And so over the course of a year, I'm actually building up that skill set, but it's probably not going to work the first time around. And so I think that's worth keeping in mind too.
Yeah. We got a question right here.
Hello, yeah. I have a question about YouTube, because YouTube can monetize for creators at a certain level. And so you have your video there, and if you're putting your video on Spotify, Apple, other places, is that competing against your YouTube growth, which can automatically monetize for you?
So again, what we're seeing is these audiences are often quite discreet. So if you're doing well on YouTube, that can just keep going. That's fine. You can keep going that way. The other thing I'll say is I think the shows that are doing really well with monetization are mostly building up an audience that's valuable to some sort of sponsor and then going direct to those sponsors. And I think what's exciting about being able to distribute to Apple and being able to distribute to RSS, like all the RSS-based apps, is you own that connection. And so you can put baked-in ads in your video podcast, go out and get those sponsors directly, and actually do much better. Or keep your YouTube revenue as just like, that's one piece of our revenue pie, but there's these other opportunities as well. You can also do ad insertions with video on Apple Podcasts, but I'm increasingly recommending that folks go direct. A quick story, Acquired is one of our customers, and they started off just like two guys, did the show for 6 years, didn't make any money. That show, I think, did about $20 million in revenue last year. And the reason that they did that much revenue is because they built up a valuable audience. And then there were sponsors that wanted access to that audience. Sometimes as creators, we don't know what we have. We actually have. Why did OpenAI buy, this isn't a joke, why did OpenAI buy TBPN? Distribution. In an AI world, distribution is the hardest part. One reason I'm bullish on podcasting is look at all these AI tech bros and like how they spend their time. They spend basically all of their time on podcasts. That's the distribution, and that's why OpenAI was willing to pay so much for that. So we have the distribution, we have something they want, and now we have more avenues to monetize that attention.
And as another example there, like Acquired at one point was the top show in the world, I think sometime last year. So this is a big show. It's easy to say, well, they do $20 million a year, but I've had many clients with shows, 500 downloads an episode, less than 1,000, who will get $1,000 per episode sponsorship packages because they have niche audiences and they're able to find the right companies for whom that audience is very valuable. And so you don't need a big show either. And a lot of times the other thing that we don't often think about in podcasting, a lot of the people who are doing the best is thinking about building their platform. And so they've got an email list and they've got the podcast and maybe they've got some social media, and they say, oh, I'm not just going to run an ad for you on the podcast. Why don't I put a campaign together where I'm going to send a dedicated email to my list to give you the link right to the product. I'm going to talk about it on the podcast, and I'm going to do 4 weeks of ad insertions, and then we're going to have you on as a guest, and then we'll send another email out at the end. And all of a sudden, this is a much more valuable proposition because we're actually not just saying, I just sell 30-second ad slots. It's saying, hey, I want to help you achieve your goals, whatever you are as a company. I have the people, I have the creative ability and skill set to be able to put something together, and I'm going to put that to work for you.
Yeah, and maybe one more comment about that. That TBPN show, not a big show. It's also hosted on Transistor, but you can see their public YouTube numbers. It's like 7,000 views an episode. Like, they're not a big show. So why did OpenAI acquire them? Because they have the right audience. Those 7,000 people that are watching are the right audience that they want to reach, and they're willing to pay a premium to reach that audience. We have another question. Oh, we got the mic right here. We'll keep spreading the mic around. Passing the mic around.
So my concern with the approach of just starting slow and improving your skills over time is, like, with the availability of so much very high quality content online, audiences, including myself, I'm not innocent, I've come very spoiled, very, very high expectations. So usually my fear is if someone's going to click on my stuff, not like it, that would create a bad impression. I would lose a potential viewer, even if I come up their feed at some point in the future, oh, that's a terrible show. So is that realistic? Is that fear kind of realistic? Is it?
I mean, I totally get that fear, by the way. I'm just a kid from Stony Plain, Alberta. Why would anyone want to listen to me, really? But just getting started, I think, is part of it. I think the other thing I'll say is, right now, everything has gone so slick, high production. People are desperate for connection, really. And so one thing that I'm experimenting with is going way more lo-fi and raw with video. So I'm filming a lot of my podcast now with my iPhone. And sometimes it's just even becoming untethered. I've got a nice DSLR, but now I'm just moving around my studio. And a lot of people are like, oh, I've never seen your studio from that angle before. That's interesting to see your space. And I'm going to start going out on the street and recording some shows there. I'm going to start even being more, my friend Chase Reeves has this thing where he looks at his camera and then he imagines it's like this person that he knows that he wants to reach. And if you watch his stuff, he's so good at making you as a viewer feel like he's talking directly to you. And I think there's these things we can do that reflect this present moment where people are so desperate for real authenticity. And that might mean, yeah, I'm going to use a crappier camera because it's more real. I think more real is going to win. I don't think you need slick. I think what's going to stand out is like lose the, hey, I'm a podcaster. Like, hey, it's me. I'm a human. I'm here. Let me tell you about, let's talk. I think that's going to pierce through the noise.
And again, I think I would just say that if you feel like there's some opportunity in video, there's just no way to get to where we are now without the skill to like top of the heap, best production quality possible. I at one point went back through the archive of This American Life and started with episode 1, and I quickly abandoned that because it was not very good. Like, it was clearly a show that was finding its voice, and you go back through anybody's feed who's any kind of creator, artists in any medium, it's like the first stuff is never good. And I think the people who continue to evolve and take advantage of new opportunities are those who like get to the top of one ladder, and then they're like, oh, this has taken me as high as I can go. I got to go over to a different ladder and start at the bottom again and start climbing my way up. And I think that this is just the necessary piece of staying relevant and continuing to grow, both as a creator as well as your audience as well.
I'm re-recording a lot of stuff. Like, I'll record one where I'm like trying to be like high level, and then I'm like, oh wait, I just got to bring it down, like shake it out and be like, okay, this is me, this is real. And then I record it again. Yeah.
It's interesting what you said about the video and the podcast, because Jeremy knows me well. I've had 2 periods in the 3.5 years I've had my podcast of where I've done video, because you need to do video, right? And so I've just recorded it on my phone. The quality's been, average, and I've put it on YouTube because it's ticked that box. And each time I've stopped doing it because I don't enjoy the experience of the talking to camera whilst I'm podcasting. To me, they're different things. I can either record a video or I can do my podcasting. Never the twain shall meet. But what you've said in this, you said 2 things that have been really interesting. One is the video doesn't actually have to be of me. And I'm like, I've never thought of that. So that was really useful. And what you just said there as well about just going out and actually making it raw, rather than using something that is trying to pretend like it's super professional in the studio. Actually, just go outside and record something and think about it, relax about it all a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, aren't you guys all tired of that performative, like, Instagram thing? I think people are just sick of that. I think that's why people are going to podcasts, because they're just like desperate for something else. The other thought that came up while you were talking, what's that weird band from Montreal that has the polka dots? You guys have seen that?
Yeah.
I think there's like creative ideas in podcasting. Like, no one's done that thing where you dress up in a costume and you do. Who's going to start the first hand puppet podcast? Like, I want to see some creativity. Like, there's some things we can bring here that haven't been done before that I think could be interesting. The hand puppet? Okay, we got it right here.
The other thing and just about the enjoyment piece is, our last slide there, like, as long as we enjoy creating the stuff we're creating, I think there's lots of people who won't want to do anything to do with video ever, and you can still be successful in podcasting. And so I mentioned Sam, my friend and client. He's got 2 shows, both audio only. His newest one, How to Change the World, that is a show, it's about a year old now, and it's got featured like 7 times in Apple, audio only. He's very committed to audio, and he's got something already like 30 or 50,000 downloads an episode. And so it's like, audio is not dead. There is a lot of potential for great audio-only shows, and if you love creating that, like, there's still opportunity.
Who still has a question? I know we got one here. Okay, we'll start answering these a little bit faster. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so I really resonated with what you were saying about people listen everywhere, so who are we to say what a podcast is? I run a YouTube channel teaching people how to podcast, and so people often respond being like, I love your podcast, and I'm like, oh, I thought it was a YouTube video.
Yeah.
So I totally understand what you're saying, but on the other hand, we know that creating stuff that's native to a platform is really important, right? So thinking about just taking clips and putting it on Instagram and TikTok feels like are we just doing everything just a little less well than, because we're not doing anything for the platform?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question.
I'll lead off with that one.
Okay.
So I think one of the key things here is we need to adjust our expectations. And so if we say, I'm going to put in 100% effort and do this platform really well, we can have high expectations of what we can achieve. And sometimes we can say, I'm going to put in 30% of the effort and I'm going to reduce my expectations down to 30%. And I know that I'm never going to blow up on this platform, but this is another touch point that maybe it has some benefit, but it's really easy for me to do. The other thing that I would say is that there are ways you can structurally engineer bits into your show that are actually really easily repurposable. And so a lot of shows that are on video and audio do this, where they'll have a segment of the show that rather than skimming through the episode afterward to find some 5-minute clip, they're like, no, we have a segment that is defined, it's in every episode, and we know we've engineered their beats in it that go through every time to be clippable. And that might be 1 minute for Instagram, it might be 5 minutes or 7 minutes for a short bit on YouTube. But we can start thinking about, instead of backloading the production and that marketing, saying how do we design a show that can do well on all these platforms and that's really listenable, really enjoyable, and it ticks all the boxes. So I think that that's a different way to think about it as well.
I think the other thing that comes to mind, I feel this pressure too. Clipping things and putting them on Instagram, and again, I am a chopped unk. Why am I doing this? I think every great show has really been built by making something so great that people tell their friends. And so some of this other stuff is just theater. We're just doing stuff because we've seen other people do it, and what we don't know is that it's not helping them either. What really helps is making a show so great that people recommend it to their friends. That's how Acquired built their show. That's basically how every great show gets built. And I think the one thing the trick, a little tip that we can all use is just prompt your audience, especially if you're being real. Hey, it's me, Justin. I record this show in my basement. It's just me. If you like this show, and I would really appreciate it if you share it with a friend. Prompt them. Show them. Create a culture with your show where people are sharing it if they like it. And I found that people will actually do this. So make a show so great that people have to share it. We didn't do a good job of answering that short. Okay, let's keep going.
Hi, I have a podcast. I started in 2024, and I work full-time, unrelated to... Okay, it's getting closer. Unrelated to my work, and it does a deep dive, but some of the episodes are 10 minutes, and some of them are half an hour to an hour, depending on if I've got a guest or not. I want to know, what do you think about, do you have to kind of pump out material every week, or is it okay to do seasons? Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of push, oh yeah, you need to keep the consistency of your audience, and they need to trust you, and it's just how are you supposed to put out that much information?
I think, actually, one thing that's bad for an ecosystem is tropes. So one trope in podcasting is you have to publish every week or your podcast is going to die. And very often we're not testing that out because there's other tropes out there. There's one called always leave the audience wanting more. So that could mean you could take a break and you could tell people, hey folks, I'm taking a break and I'm going to be back. And here's a little tease. When I get back, I'm going to talk about this. I'll see you in 2 months. You can do that. You can try that out.
I do that. I do have breaks, but it's really going into structured seasons now. The whole idea of doing something every week is too draining.
Yeah.
Well, a few examples here. So we talked about Acquired, one of the biggest shows in the world. They release once a month. Another show, 3 Books that I mentioned, big show, not as big as Acquired. He releases every full moon, or is it new moon? One of the other. He's on the lunar calendar. That's his release schedule. And then we've got How to Change the World from my friend Sam. He releases sporadically, kind of once a month, maybe every 6 weeks, and he's getting 30 to 50,000 downloads an episode. And my newest show as well, I said, I don't have time to do this show at the level that I want on a weekly basis, and probably not even on a monthly basis. So I said, I'll probably make 6 to 8 episodes a year, and that's going to work for me, and it's going to be useful to people as well. So I think we can make up the rules, but I do think we need to think about, okay, if we're only releasing episodes sporadically, how do we make sure that they're worth waiting for? And so I think we can't just give a 5-minute little quick tip that somebody can find elsewhere and only release that once every 6 months, because are people going to wait around for that?
Okay, I think we got time for 1 or 2 more. This fellow's been waiting a while, so we'll go here and then there. Yeah, no, this is good, yeah.
So, sorry, sorry, I will be fast. So we were talking about categories at some point in the presentation, and I was wondering if you have any point of view on other categories, because I think we are talking a lot about talk podcasts, so that are easier to use on video. But like I am in my podcast agency, we did at the beginning a lot of long form stories, personal stories, true crime and everything, and I see that very difficult to match with the video. So what do you think?
I think of the, has anybody watched the YouTube channel Veritasium? It's not a podcast, but it's a science education channel. They have these kind of like cheapish animations that they have through a lot of the videos that I think work really well for storytelling. So they do a lot of historical storytelling, and they have these videos that are kind of clunky, that are going on in the background. And I even think back to like true crime TV from like the 90s and 2000s as an example of like, those didn't have high production value like we have today. They often didn't have the actual people being interviewed. There was just vague shots. And so I think if we're thinking about the video's not the star here, it's just an ambient background piece, we have a lot that we can actually do with those types of narrative pieces if we just like, hey, this doesn't need to be, this is not the category of Netflix documentary true crime. This is a podcast with some element that kind of assists in telling the story, kind of like your example of the Dungeons and Dragons version.
Yeah, I think the Ken Burns effect is your friend. Like just slideshow, and then there's something going on screen. And honestly, try it. And if you watch what your kids are watching, like so much of it is just like slideshows of like animated photos, like slowly zooming in and zooming out, right? So I think it's worth trying. And maybe you can bring those visuals up to your level of taste. But it'd be interesting to try. The other thing is you can always send it to your audience and say, hey, what do you think about this? Yes, over here.
That might have answered my question, but I run a production company that specializes in kind of high-touch audio. We do a lot of documentary narrative. We've been lucky to find clients who do that. So it's been a bit of an existential crisis of like, because it's actually the opposite of what you said. It's not that we're worried that it would make it too complicated to do video, it's that we would have to reduce the complexity of what we're doing in order to make a video.
Mm-hmm.
And without having a television show budget, And so I wonder if what we have here, and I want to float a theory past you, so we have a homonym problem. That there's a couple of different kinds of programs that are totally different, have different audiences, that all are being called podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I wonder if as the public perception of what a podcast is has shifted from when I started doing this to being a talk show or someone speaking directly to camera that might exist audio, might exist video, might be both. Maybe shows that are created for the ear, and specifically for the ear, we just need a different word for that now. And so because there's a big audience for that still. Hundreds of millions of people want high quality audio shows. And I think maybe even more people would if it wasn't getting lost in the sea of this content that could be or should be hybrid. Maybe we need a new word for audio.
Dude, this is so good. We're all going to stay here for another hour to dig into this one. Do you have a thought?
Well, it's interesting with the audio versus video distinction, but I think of a medium like TV, and you think about the breadth of what is TV. We've got like prestige TV of Breaking Bad, and we've got lo-fi talk shows on like public access TV. And so there's a huge range of production values, but we all know what it is still intuitively, even though there's many different descriptions to it. It's a little bit different when we get into some are video and some are audio only. I do think that is somewhat like...
But there's a difference between television and radio, and we know what that difference is. And with podcasts, it's all of those things.
Yeah, and I think the problem is that consumers define it. Like there's nothing we can do. Basically like audio, podcasting did start as what we all consider podcasting audio only, and then consumers kind of took that and said, no, I think of this as a podcast, and all of a sudden it became a podcast. And so I can imagine we could do some kind of like PR campaign to put forth some campaign. Maybe it's that Make Podcast Audio Only Again campaign. We just all signed that. But
forget the term podcast. That's fine. I'll throw that out. I just want to keep making these kind of shows.
Yeah, yes. I think the market will eventually settle on that. I think actually 5 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a new term that people out there said, no, these are actually different, and it morphed into two distinct.
Suggestions.
I don't think we need a new word. I think it's fine. I think podcasting can encompass many things. And by the way, again, Gen Z is addicted to their phones, and they want to get off their phones. I think there's going to be a resurgence in, we were talking about this, a resurgence in audio only. So keep making audio only shows. And I think it's fine to say this is an audio-only podcast. I think that's fine. Just like there's talk radio, there's sports radio, there's radio drama, right? There's soap operas started on radio. There's comedy radio. You can have lots of different types of. There's also Howard Stern radio, which is also a TV, a video. So I think we can keep podcasting. Just lean into audio only. All right, thank you so much, everybody. We still have lots of merch. Go and grab a t-shirt. Helen does not want to bring it home.